My name is Lyle Williams. I'm the curator of prints and drawings here at the McNay, and the organizer of this exhibition. What you see is what you see. So what you see on the wall are minimalist and conceptualist prints from our permanent collection. There is only one work in the gallery that doesn't belong to us, and that's on loan from a very generous donor to the McNay, a man named John Parker, who lives in Austin. Many of the works in the exhibition are gifts from John, so this is actually a celebration of about 20 years worth of work on my part that brings together what the McNay has been acquiring since about 1999 in this field of minimalist and conceptualist printmaking, with John's gift, which came to us in 2017. So I'm sort of a fish out of water this evening because I'm neither a musician nor am I a music scholar. But I am deeply passionate about music, so I'm in every true sense of the word an amateur. And so if I say anything that offends our guests or any musicologists in the audiences, I apologize. So I was buying records by Beethoven and Bach and Brahms when I was about 10. So classical music for me was my first music love, really. I was lucky enough, in about 1990, a friend of mine had another friend, a woman named Margaret Ton, who was considered the foremost interpreter of John Cage's, the great conceptual composer's work, and I was invited to a performance of her work at Merkin Hall at Lincoln Center. And I went thinking this is going to be heavy cake, this is not going to be fun. And so, but I was enthralled, and I just fell in love with this kind of minimalist and conceptualist work. And I remember, you always know when you're deep into a piece of music, because for me it means that my elbows are on my knees and my hand is cupped in my face like this. And I just lean forward and I try to get as close as I possibly can to the stage. That evening for me was pretty magical. One of the pieces that Margaret performed that evening was John Cage's 433, during which, of course, the musician does not play the piano for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. The common misconception is, of course, that 433 is about silence, but that's not what Cage was interested in. He was more interested in ambient noise and what happens during that time span. That, to me, was mind-boggling. As an amateur of music and not a professional, I was, as I said, I was just enthralled. And so for me, actually, minimalist and conceptualist music has helped me to appreciate the art that you see hanging on the wall. So the intertwining of the visual arts and music goes back a long time. So I was thinking on the way over here, we throw out all these isms. And the thing that fascinates me as an art historian is that these isms exist in different media. So let's go back to the 19th century. Let's think about Impressionism. Everyone loves Impressionism, right? So think about Monet. At the time that Monet is painting, who's composing at that time? Claude Debussy, whose work we consider the beautiful Clair de Lune, we consider to be Impressionist music. And when you think about the Clair de Lune, if you all can pull that up in your personal computers in your head, there are notes that he makes, that he composed, that just sort of float in space for a minute, so that you appreciate just that one note. And I've always thought about those notes suspended in the same vein as Monet's single brushstrokes. So you can see where this confluence created a perfect marriage for Impressionist visual art as well as for music. But I also think about, in the 20th century, I also think about abstract expressionism. And we all know that many of those artists, Willem de Kooning, Jackson Pollock, listened to American jazz. And I think it could be argued that abstract expressionism, with its grand gestures and expressive quality, would never have happened without the influence of jazz. Closer to our time, which is why we're here, minimalist and conceptualist music and art go hand in hand. And I apologize if I'm about to oversimplify, but for me, what links the music that you're going to hear this evening and the art that's hanging on the wall is that minimalism and conceptualism were both in the visual arts and in music, were challenging what art and music could be about, what it was, the very essence of it. So minimalism, like the Donald Judds that you see on this wall, the 4 green woodcuts, he's trying to strip away as much as he can and still have this art as a recognizable art object. So how much can we strip away and still get away with it? Conceptualism is all about the idea of making art, the process of making art. It's just like that John Cage 433. It's like, how far can I take this idea, this concept of music, and still have it exist as a work of art? So that's why, I'm so delighted to have the SOLI Chamber Ensemble here, because this is a beautiful marriage of the visual arts, the performing arts. And I should say, before I hand the mic over to Stephanie, who has been a delight to work with, that I think it's every other Thursday, we're actually doing performances of John Cage's 433. Last week I did the first performance. I've asked various staff members to come and volunteer and do it. So we will do it every other Thursday during the run of the show. So we will post the schedule here on the piano. So that's why the piano is here in the first place. And I can tell you that performing 433 is a lot harder than it looks. I was so relieved when that 4 minutes and 33 seconds was over, because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what to do. Where do you look? Do you look at, because I put my iPhone on the piano, right, to keep time. And I brought out the sheet music for 433, but the sheet music is minimal. So again, it ties in with the exhibition. There's nothing to look at. So I was super nervous, and I had an audience, and I didn't want to look at them because I thought that I might break out laughing. Because there's an absurdist Dada quality to it as well, because of course John Cage was inspired by Marcel Duchamp. But I hope you will come back and enjoy the exhibition and see other performances here in the gallery of 433. And now, please join me in welcoming the SOLI Chamber Ensemble.
I thought I'd just say a couple of words about the first piece you're going to hear, China Gates. He was talking about minimalism, and I loved the comments that he had. I've got to say, when I did 4 minutes and 33 seconds, it's the longest 4 minutes and 33 seconds of my life. It's just, it was a kind of horrific thing. But what happens when you're looking at those seconds going by is just magical. In China Gates, we have a type of minimalism that I like to think about a quartz crystal. And it's not just repetitive music, but it's taking something like a quartz crystal, imagine it hanging right here, and imagine it just slightly turning. It's the same quartz crystal, but depending on the lights, you're going to get different colors. You're going to get just a little bit of a different flavor for it. And so I hope you'll enjoy listening to that on John Adams' China Gates.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is really wonderful to see so many new faces and so many of you. That's just great. I mean, this exhibit is incredible, number one. And to be able to play the pieces that were written around the same time these were created is really exhilarating for all of us. And I'm going to be playing a Philip Glass piece for you. Oh, great, we have fans. Excellent. This piece is called Strung Out, and the story behind this piece is it was written in 67, 68, around that area, where it's not his first minimalist pieces. This is right after Europe. He went to Europe, studied with Nadia Boulanger, and then came back to New York, and so he was working on these pieces. The story is that originally the music was about 21 pages, and it was connected in such a way that it just sort of like extended, it strung out. That's sort of how it starts, but it was first performed as sort of pages pasted on different walls and different places in the performance space, and the violin was mic'd with a contact mic, so the violinist could kind of walk around and perform. I think it's a fantastic idea, but we have so many great paintings here that we couldn't really do that. Plus, I have an iPad I like to use. I don't like turning 21 pages. The piece is not a success for Philip Glass. It rarely gets played, and the reason for it is this additive sort of style that he was trying to perfect at the time. This piece and another flute piece, I can't remember, 600 measures or something it's called. These were never, the performance was successful, the first performance, but then after that it never really got picked up. I'm kind of surprised about that because I think it's a perfect example of that additive technique. What he does is he gets you in the mode of a particular rhythmic pattern, then he'll add something. And then he'll change one thing. I mean, this is one of the things, of course, in minimalist music that we're really used to, like in the Adams piece, very similarly, you have the harmonic structure, and then one note will change that harmonic structure, and you don't even notice it till it happens. So this one is more on a rhythmic level. So he's grouping each, sort of grouping in a different way, in 2s and 3s and 4s. He rarely goes 5 or 6. But those groupings change quite a bit. So again, like with any Philip Glass, it's one of those that you just close your eyes and just enjoy, be in the moment, just listen to what's happening with the music, how the shapes are changing, and just sort of create your own little universe. I hope you enjoy it.
youngest composer on this program, Missy Mazzoli. And she is a composer that doesn't define herself by one genre. She does identify as a minimalist, but also as someone who writes in pop genres. So you hear a mix of genres through this piece. And to me, it also has a kind of a surreal atmosphere to it. She uses all kinds of textures in the cello, from solfeggio, it's kind of really squealy sound, towards a bridge, and hard playing, pressing hard with the bow, to create these different textures. And then brings in the poetry with soprano Jacquelyn Matava. This piece is written for one cellist who also sings. That's not me. Jackie's coming in to help out with that. Oh yeah, yeah.
So I'll read you guys the poetry. It's a short poem by Stephen Crane and comes in exactly 3 minutes and 18 seconds into the electronics, into the performance. I have 1,000 tongues and 999 lie. Though I try to use the one, it will make no melody at my will. It is dead in my mouth. And it's kind of a haunting melody that comes in the middle, maybe 2/3 of the way through this piece that really is for cello. So I hope you enjoy 1,000 Tongues.
Tried to get him to sing, but he wouldn't do it. We're so lucky to have you. This next piece, Elena Kats-Chernin, we featured this on a program we called Metamorphosis. And we've worked with Bella San Antonio, and we programmed pieces that sort of have to do with metamorphosis. And this one's called Butterflying by Elena Kats-Chernin. And one thing that we found out when we were researching for pieces, that this Australian composer, she basically says she unabashedly writes beautiful music, and she doesn't want to experiment. She just wants to write beautiful melodies, and she's totally fine with it. I think in the environment, where a lot of experimentation happens, it's kind of an interesting sentiment. She's sticking to her guns. She's not a minimalist composer per se, but she does have some minimalistic tendencies. You'll see that she will be dancing around a couple of versions of the theme, embellishing it a little bit. So we felt that this would fit the program really well. So we hope you enjoy it.
close of our little time together. But we've saved, not necessarily the best for last, the final third of what we think of as the legendary minimalist composers. Alex, who you heard, China Gates. The Glass, with the Airtones piece. And now we have Steve Reich. What's really interesting to me is I could say exactly Carolyn's beautiful prism. I could say the same thing about this. It had the same comments that Airtone had about the Glass. Because that stripped down, as Lyle was saying, very much is the same with music, right? We take this down, strip it down to where we just have the basics. But what's interesting is Reich is a percussionist. So he hears things in a very percussive kind of way, you could say, which he's written a lot of. If you're curious, you can just go online and find all sorts of amazing recordings of Goya rhythms and drumming, all sorts of drumming things. He even was on tour with a world tour with his group, and they tried xylophones and all this stuff, and they were so sick at the end of it, dragging all that stuff around, that he wrote a piece called Clapping Music, where it took two people, actually you can do it with many people, it has to be more than one though, and it's basically just two people clapping, and it's the way that these voices phase in and out of each other. It's mesmerizing. But also mesmerizing is a piece that he wrote for 11 clarinet lines. Now you'll notice I stand here alone without my other compatriots. But you're going to hear a recording of the other tracks. So these are all actually acoustic clarinetists, just like me, on this recording. And then this live element that he adds, rather than it just being a recorded element where you would just hear a recording, but having the live person somehow adds that spark to it. And he similarly, you'll hear things just, my image for this piece in particular, with a minimalistic piece, is it's like watching leafy sun patterns as the sun moves. It's ever so slight, but if you just take the time to actually watch something like that, you begin to see how those patterns, how those tree leaves change on the carpet or the floor wherever you are. And that's very much what the mode that I like to go into when I play this piece. I should have said it earlier, but if you have questions for Lyle, for SOLI, for any of us this evening, I hope after we're finished, you'll be brave enough to ask it. We'd love to talk with you.